Cool. Good evening, guys, and welcome back to another one of our weekly group calls. Last week we talked a little bit more on the training side with Adam. So this week we are going to talk a little bit more about nutrition. Specifically, we're going to talk about the weekends. I know that when we are especially in a fat loss phase and we're trying to see progress every week, it definitely feels easier to stay on track in the working week than it does on the weekends. The working week, usually we don't have any plans. We're mentally occupied with work, with family life, with keeping things running. It comes to the weekend, there's more time to think, there's more plans. We want to go out, we want to have fun. And as a result, sticking to a calorie deficit specifically can feel really challenging. So, what we're going to go through today, I want to give you some tools if you think about having kind of a toolkit by the end of this call that you can use so that when you have weekend plans, you know exactly how to tackle them so that you can stay in your calorie deficit, keep making progress, but most importantly, so that you still enjoy the event as well, because that's also really important. So we're going to dive straight in. Before we get into that, some mindset for the week. We talk so much about in the program about the scales. Obviously, we need to know what's happening with the scales to make sure that we're either maintaining, we're losing, or we're gaining, whatever the goal is for you in this current moment. It's a piece of data that we use and is important when it comes to this journey. But I do think that just because of how we are as human beings, I think it's really easy for us to just get fixated on the scales. And sometimes, if we have a week where we don't see the scale change, which is always going to happen, it's really normal. As a result, if we don't see the scale move, I feel like it can really affect us mentally and we can get really bogged down by it. I know that I've been guilty of doing this in the past. If I don't see the scale change, I get really disheartened. I think nothing's working and I'm not doing anything right. So, the thing I want you guys to really think about this week, that's going to help you with this and also just de-stress you when anything like this does happen, is I want you to start thinking about other health markers and other wins that you can start to notice. Things like your energy levels, your mental well-being, your sleep and your quality of sleep, how your clothes are fitting, your weekly photos that we get you guys to take, you're noticing loads of changes there. Even like your relationships, if you've noticed that, like, oh, I feel like I'm being better mentally, so I'm like a better friend, a better partner, whatever it might be. And also your performance in the gym. All of these markers are just as valid as the scales. And if we're seeing an improvement in one or two or three of these, even maybe more than that, we know that there's big changes happening for the better for our health. This has nothing to do with the scales. And sometimes I think it's really easy for us to think if we're not seeing that drop on the scale, like something's not working right and clearly like nothing's changed. If you're noticing these, there are massive changes happening. And just because the scale isn't reflecting that yet, doesn't mean that you're not doing really well. So the next time this happens, because I'll be honest with you guys, it will happen to you. It happens to all of us, and it happens to us more than once, annoyingly. You step on the scales and you don't see anything change. I want you to take a step back and think, okay, well, maybe the scale hasn't moved, but has anything else happened this week that's been really good? Yeah, you know what? I've noticed that mentally I'm feeling like I'm able to deal with stress at work a lot better. My clothes are fitting really differently. Like I'm doing up notches on my belt that I've never done before. I'm really noticing a big change in my pictures. Whatever it might be, I'm waking up in the morning with tons more energy than I have for years. If you're noticing this stuff, that is just as valid. And I want you guys to remember that if you do have a bit of a wobble and you don't maybe see much of a change on the scales there. The scales are literally just one metric only. So I want you guys to kind of take this and take this energy into the week. I also think it's just when you start thinking in this way, this journey becomes a lot more enjoyable and it becomes a lot more fun as well because we're not just bogged down by the scales. So, talking about mindset for the week, let's now talk about the topic of this week. So, social events, tracking, and calorie deficit specifically. Common issues, feeling like you're on track during the week, but then on the weekends we fall off. No idea how to actually stay track on the week on track on the weekends. Like it might feel a bit impossible. Like how do I actually have fun but also still lose weight? There also might be a bit of FOMO there as well. I know that I used to feel this as well. Like before I learned more about this, I didn't want to say no to events. I didn't want to miss out on stuff, and I didn't want to miss out on time with family and friends. Also, maybe you're not enjoying, or maybe you're feeling stressed out by events or meals out when they come up when you're trying to lose weight specifically as well. Like maybe it's causing you a lot of anxiety rather than thinking, oh, that'll be fun. I said here the effort button activates as well. Let's say you go out on the weekend, you have one meal or one day that goes a bit off plan, you eat more than you wanted to. And as a result, you kind of get into this headspace where you're like, well, if I've ruined that day, I've ruined the entire journey, I've ruined the entire process. If there's no calories on the menu, we kind of think, what's the point? What's the point of me even trying to stay on track because I have no idea how many calories are in this? And also dealing with things like liquid calories and alcohol. These are all common issues that I know that you guys have dealt with when trying to lose weight, and like all the people that have come before you guys as well. So where we want to get to by the end of this call, and where how I want all of you guys listening to this to feel, is that you're able to say yes to meals out, to say yes to special occasions, trips, weekends away, not feeling like you have to say no and not being stressed about that, not feeling stressed in social situations, to still feel like you're really included, you're enjoying yourself going out. And as a result, even despite all of that, you are staying on track and you're not impacting your progress. That's how I want you guys to feel. And I want you to feel like you have that toolkit when you come away from this call, being like, it's no stress if I have a weekend plan come up now. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to have a good time and I'm not going to go backwards in my journey. So I've got some step by steps, how to go out, have fun, and make amazing progress. I've got a few points to go through. The first one is honestly probably the most important one. That's why I've put it at number one. I actually did a post about this that I sent out on Instagram today, but we're going to do calorie banking. And this is going to be something that's going to be really useful for you to use when you've got a big meal out coming up. So the first thing you need to do is you need to start viewing your calories as a weekly target and not a daily target. This is going to give you a lot more freedom when it does come to events. So let's say, for example, you're in a deficit right now. Your calorie goal is 1800. Rather than thinking, oh, I've just got 1800 on each individual day, I want you to times that by 7 for 7 days of the week, obviously. And I want you to think, okay, instead, I've got 12,600 calories for the week. This is going to be really helpful because this is going to give you more flexibility if you do have a meal coming up and you know that you're going to have more calories on that day. You can plan ahead for that event and think of hitting your weekly target of calories instead of your daily. So calorie banking, therefore, once you're looking at your calories as a weekly target, you can start to do banking or saving 100 to 200 calories a day, like 5 days leading up to your event. So let's say you've got a meal coming up on Saturday. Monday to Friday, what you can do is you could eat anywhere from 1600 to 1700 calories a day with that calorie goal. So you're saving 1 to 200 calories and you're going to stock them up and you're going to use them on the Saturday instead. When you do that, if you did that for 5 days, you'd had anywhere from an extra 500 to 1,000 calories to play with when you go for your meal out. So the idea is that you maybe eat slightly less on that week for a couple of days of the week. And then when it gets to the meal out, you've got loads more calories to play with and you've got a lot more food freedom. And when you do this, I recommend trying to take this from your carbs and your fats and still trying to keep the protein high because we obviously don't want you to be really starving, hungry, or having any intense cravings. So that's the way that I would recommend doing that. This is also something I don't recommend doing like every single week. I always want to make that really clear. I'm not now saying go and eat way under your calorie deficit forever and then just eat way more at the weekends. We want to make sure that we're only using this when we have got like a big day coming up. Let's say it's like a birthday meal or a special occasion or a big meal out, something like that. I want you to use it sparingly and not every single week because like I said, we don't want you to just be underfueling all the time. But this works super well on that occasion when you've got an event. So to recap that, viewing your calories as a weekly target instead, doing a little bit of planning ahead in advance, thinking, oh, I've got a meal out on Saturday, so I've got Monday to Friday to save some calories, save 100 to 200 max per day, and then you've got more to play with the meal at the weekend. That's number one, and that's really important and honestly game-changing when it comes to planning for meals out. The second thing is pick from the menu ahead of time. Loads of places, especially chain restaurants right now, have got their calorie info for each meal listed on there, which is great when you're in a diet phase because you can just pick something and go, I'm going to make sure that I save that many calories for that meal. If they don't have the calorie information, which we know, like, the little local independent Italian down the road isn't going to have how many calories are in their carbonara, are they? So if you don't have that, just use ChatGPT for an estimate. ChatGPT is actually really helpful for this. You can just go into there and say, I'm having this meal from this menu. Can you give me a rough estimate on how many calories that would be? Obviously, it's not going to be exact, but it's going to give you a rough idea so you also know how to plan your meal around that. And when you are going out, just so that you're staying as full as possible, it's always good to try and pick something that's good protein still when you're dieting, adding lots of veg for volume and fiber so that you're putting more onto your plate, feeling as full as possible. And go by the rule of two as well. So from a starter, a main, a dessert, and a drink. If you're dieting and if you're going out, pick two of those. So either go for a starter and a main and a dessert, or a main and a drink, or something like that. I know for me, I'm going to have a dessert in there. That's just the way I roll. I've got a big sweet tooth. I'd go main dessert. That would be my choice, but you guys might be a bit different. Pick two of those. Either pick something ahead from the menu or use ChatGPT to give you an estimate. And that again will allow you to do that little bit of calorie banking, which we just talked about, save some extra calories, and you roughly know at least what you're going to be having when you go there. And that's just going to make you feel really in control, really relaxed at your meal out, which is the most important thing. Number three, just limit your alcohol. But what I really mean by that is kind of just be sensible with your alcohol. Obviously, alcohol is not off limits. There's room for it in your diet, but I won't lie to you guys and say that yeah, you can just go out every weekend and have two bottles of wine and you'll be absolutely fine. You'll lose weight. We know that we need to have a level of restriction there, but it's not off limits. Just make sure that you're tracking your alcohol if you do have them. Up the water intake when you're out. Have lots of water to kind of keep you hydrated and balanced in between your drinks. And I would just go for some smart swaps if you are going to have a drink. I'd stick to like one or two drinks. Go for things like spirits, so your gin, your vodka, your rum. They're a lot lower calorie compared to things like cocktails and beer. Go for diet mixers as well, just to cut the calories there. It's a smart thing. And if you do have alcohol, obviously, like I said, there's space for you to have it, especially if it's a special occasion and things like that. Just track it, allow for the calories, and maybe just make a smarter swap there. Number four, first of all, just weigh up the pros and cons as well. This is what I always like to say to you guys, but if you come to me and say, I've got a meal coming up next week, what should I do? The first thing that I'll probably ask you is what's the most important thing for you in that event? Do you want to make for absolute sure that you lose fat this week and really sustainably? Or is it more important to you to maybe just loosen the reins slightly for that one meal and focus more on the occasion and the enjoyment? Whichever one it is, then you know what to do. If you're like, you know what, I'd rather relax the reins a little bit, enjoy the meal, and maybe accept that I probably won't lose fat this week, but I'm very comfortable with that decision and I'll probably be prepared to eat into more maintenance or slightly over my calories. But if it's the other way around, it's like, no, I'm not prepared to do that. I want to make sure for certain I'm on a really good hiding right now and I want to make sure that I do lose weight this week, then it's okay, we know that we need to like do some calorie banking, make some plans there and scale back slightly so that we still make sure that we do that. I think it's really important for you to be really honest with yourself in that moment and think what's going to be more important for me and just be happy with whatever the outcome of that is. Either maybe not losing weight that week, but getting back to it the next week, or definitely losing weight, but maybe just scaling back and a little bit more, maybe restriction when you go out. Number five, do not activate the effort button. I know exactly how it feels. You guys know how it feels as well. Sometimes it's really frustrating if you do have a day where you go off plan, you eat more calories than you anticipated to. Let's say you have a spontaneous meal out or something. It's really hard to not then get in your head, especially if you're someone that tends to be quite hard on yourself, which I know a lot of us can be. One day off plan isn't going to do anything to impact your progress. And I promise you that. Even 2 days, like 1 or 2 days, isn't going to do anything. But letting one off day turn into an off week or an off month will be the thing that impacts your progress in this program. So if you do have a day where you go slightly over, you don't need to do anything to overcompensate. You don't need to get in your head and suddenly think that you've ruined everything. You just need to get back on track as soon as you can. If that's the next day, if that's the following Monday, you just need to get back on it. Don't dwell on the past. If we dwell on the past, we're going to stay really angry and really frustrated and we're not going to move forward. You need to keep looking into the future. And like I said, one day really isn't going to ruin much. So don't get in your head if that does happen. Two more points. The next one I want to make really clear is make sure that you are eating well during the week when it comes to weekends as well. If you're following that 80-20 rule, so 80% of your week filling it with nutrient-dense, whole foods, nice balanced meals, 20% of the time making sure that you're allowing for your favorite things and having some treats in there, whatever that might look like for you. A non-restrictive diet is always going to win. If you're following this rule, if you're making sure that you're allowing some of your favorite things into your diet, but you're fueling up on high protein, high fiber, balanced meals as well, you're not going to feel the need to go like really mental and binge on the weekends if that's something that you felt in the past, because your body's going to be fueled and going to be given what it needs. So you're not going to feel the need to necessarily go out and just go on a complete binge all weekend and eat everything in sight, because you're going to have a lot of control there. And like I said earlier, like just use the calorie banking sparingly as well. Sometimes if we get into a flow of like, oh, I'm banking every week and I'm restricting what I'm eating in the week to then binge more at the weekends, that is then signaling to us that that kind of restriction binge is okay and is what we want to be doing, which isn't. It's just a tool that we can use when we've got a meal coming up in advance. The final point Just remember that tracking isn't forever as well. Um, Sometimes I think it's hard when we're like deep into a fat loss phase and we know we've got a little way to go. Sometimes I think we forget, oh, you think, oh, this is my life now. This is what I have to do forever. Like I constantly have to like make sacrifices at meals. I constantly have to plan ahead and do all this stuff. You don't. This is just a phase. Um, and remember that like your tracking and your fat loss phase that you're in isn't going to be a forever thing. Tracking is like an educational tool to get you to learn where your limits are, and social events are not always going to be like this and not always going to require you to track. At the moment, they're just a means to an end, and it's a temporary thing. So, sometimes it's really easy to think that this is our life now, but it's not. There's going to be phases and seasons where things are very different for you. So, in summary, the 7 points we went through. First of all, calorie bank for big meals out and special occasions. When you do have meals out and things like that, pick ahead of time as much as you can, either with the menu or ChatGPT. Organization wins. Limit your alcohol and be smart with it. Decide what outcome you want and what's most important to you when it comes to planning for that event. Do you want to make sure that you do lose fat, or would you rather more focus on enjoyment and maybe not losing weight that week? Be very comfortable with whatever decision you choose. Don't panic after one off day. Always make sure you're fueling well in the week and fueling your body in a really good way. And remember that this isn't a forever thing. This is a temporary thing until you smash your goal, get to the goal weight that you want to be at, and then things change a little bit. That's everything for this week, guys. If anyone has any further questions, if you're listening to this live or if you're watching this back on YouTube, whatever it might be, drop me a message, either Instagram, WhatsApp, wherever you kind of usually message me. Drop me a message if you want anything further to go through on that. If you have any weekend plans coming up and you'd like some further help, obviously you know where I am. But that's everything for this week, guys. I hope that you're now coming away from this thinking, oh yeah, I've got a really solid plan. I feel like I know how to tackle weekends right now. And hopefully it feels maybe a little bit less overwhelming. So I'm going to let you guys all go. But great to see so many of you here, and have a lovely rest of your evening.